actually the woman who's going to run the parent talk. I'm just the sidekick now. I'm helping out. So the idea behind this talks was we thought we would share our respective perspectives on the campus visits. And where did my son go? He's somewhere here. He is there, yes. And then you guys will hear from my son's perspective as well. And then Lauren, who's got two older children, she'll talk about what it's like, what happens when grade 12 is done, right? And the reason we did it in person is we thought, well, we'll make it a bit more interactive and we'll have people who can't join, we'll do it online. But we had some technical difficulties because our tech support person is super busy. So it is being recorded. Hopefully it works. We do have we have the new two tech support people here. So with that, so we will, we'll go for about, I think it's about an hour or so, and maybe let's hold the questions till the end just so that we can kind of get through the main part of the presentation. So I will let Sasha Janusov and Elliot Datula to do the land acknowledgement and the prayer.
We would like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Musqueam Nation and extend our appreciation for this opportunity to live, learn, and play on this beautiful territory. Acknowledging this territory shows recognition of and respect for the indigenous people who live and have lived on this land. Recognition and respect are essential elements of establishing healthy, reciprocal relationships. These relationships are key to reconciliation, a process to which Vancouver College is committed.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. For all grade 12 students preparing to enter university, may strength, wisdom, and courage guide them as they step into this new chapter. Grant them focus in their studies, confidence in their abilities, and calm hearts when challenges appear. Surround them with supportive people and opportunities that help them grow into their best selves. May their choices be thoughtful, their efforts be steady, and their futures be bright with purpose and possibility. Amen. Blessed Edmund Rice, pray for us. Live Jesus in our hearts forever. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, boys. Great job. Okay, so with that, I just need to make sure I speak into the mic. So the title of this presentation is "A Man Doesn't Live by Ramen Noodles Alone." We thought it would be kind of a catchy title. So we'll talk about, what do you need to think about? So, and again, as I said, we'll talk about the campus visits and all things that you need to think about after the university starts. So. So the campus visits, how do you, in grade 12, how do you get through grade 12? My older son is in grade 12 right now, so I am definitely in the thick of things right now, and it's very stressful at times. And then what happens then? You got in, now what? And so we'll talk about all roads lead to success, and how do you have the right mindset and simple routines. And then Lauren actually has a resource, take-home resources for us too, which she'll speak about. There was another mom who actually put it all together for other moms, which is great. The campus visits it's not, you don't have to do it, and sometimes virtual visits are good enough, but my family, we actually did campus visits this summer, and we thought they were super helpful. And so I just wanted to share our experience, what it was like. And so the picture here is actually my kids at Queens. So I guess when you start planning it, and maybe I should start grade 12, if you want to raise hands, okay? And then grade, yes, so about half, and grade 11? Okay. All right. Okay. So awesome. So I guess when you think about whether you should be visiting or not, or or is a virtual tour good enough? Again, you got to think about, if your son wants to go away to university or he wants to stay, and would it be useful? If you do decide to visit, maybe think about the time of the year that you want to visit. It needs to fit into your schedule. So example I would like to use is we actually went at the end of June, just when the school ended, was there? Yes, I think, no, we got back just before the Canada long weekend, the Canada Day. We were considering to go in August initially over the long weekend, but because of the long weekend and because, it was the summer holidays, the prices were higher. Some schools do visits, but you just don't get the same feel of campus in the summer. And we wanted to get as much kind of feel as we could. So that's something to think about. But again, think about what would work for you. And when you visit, there's many ways to skin the cat. If it's just campuses, then you need to plan, because if you want to cover as much ground as possible, then you need to really plan in advance. When you are there, think about, okay, you look for program fit, you look for, what kind of campus would you would want to be, what kind of university, there's University of Toronto, for example, it's in the middle of the city. You do live on campus the first year, but then you're in the big city, versus if you look at Queens, it's a university town, so it's a completely different vibe. What questions you want to ask admissions, and you want to look for co-ops and internships, what kind of residence life they offer. So with the admissions, it's you could book an appointment with them when you're there and ask them questions, and it helps you to do further research, and it's very helpful. And then the co-op programs or internships, what kind of things they offer, so they definitely will cover that. And then when you do the tours, so typically what we did when we were visiting, you could do a general tour, and then a lot of universities offer a specific tour. So if you're interested in life sciences, you could book that specifically, or if you're interested in business school, you can book that specifically as well. For us, our older son was interested in engineering, so in some campuses, and I'll show you the itinerary, we did both. But we also saw people who would do like a business route or life sciences or whatever it was. And that gives you a really good perspective, and you learn more about the campus. And then, make notes as you go through it, take pictures, just so that you remember what you saw and what you've learned. But to me personally, I think it was very helpful to just do that visit. We made a trip out of it. So I'll show you the itinerary. So day one, we got to McGill the night before, and we had a tour booked at 10:30. Now, all the tours we booked about a month in advance, maybe even 6 weeks in advance. Depending on the time of the year you go, some of them get booked up fairly early. They are free to book. You just create a login and you just book it. If you decide not to go, you can just let them know that you're going, just be courteous. But I do recommend definitely booking it, because some of them do get booked up quite far in advance. So ours, as I said, we booked about 6 weeks in advance. So you got to have your itinerary, your hotels and all that lined up. So on day one, we did the tour at 10:30, and then it was just my husband and my son, and they just toured Montreal for the rest of the day. We made a trip out of it. There was a festival going on that evening, so they went to the festival, they went to a nice restaurant, and they just looked around. Next day, they rented a car and they traveled to Ottawa, and then they just walked around Ottawa, and so my next picture is a picture of the Parliament, actually. And then the day three, so they had a 10 a.m. tour of University of Ottawa, general tour, and then in the afternoon, I made them do Carleton because they were there anyways, and I'm like, you guys are gonna go and watch and check it out. This day four was a Saturday, so typically not a lot of schools, at least in Ontario, they don't do a Saturday tour. So we just took a day off. We toured the capital. We had a bike tour. We went out for dinner and just rested. And then on day five, it was a Sunday, so we drove from Ottawa to Kingston, which is about 2 hours. And 1:30, we had a tour of Queens. And I think Queens only at the time offered a general tour. And each tour is about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And it's usually led by a student. and you can ask them a lot of questions, and it usually includes a residence tour, so it's really helpful because you can see what the residents are like and you can experience it. They like walk you through a sample room, and they walk you to a cafeteria, they explain the food plan, they go to food court, they show you the student resources, and they show you typical classrooms, so you get a really good feel for campus. And you could probably do it virtually because all universities have virtual tours, they have little videos as well, and that's good too, that's great. We just thought that would be nice to experience it. And also for our youngest son, he finished grade 8 at the time, and we thought, well, for him, it's nice to join us and just think about what's in the future, because it's that future is not far away, right? And so for him, it was also very helpful. And then, so we did the Queens, and then that evening we drove to Toronto. We're stuck in Toronto traffic, and at 11 o'clock we had the general tour at University of Toronto, and then at 3 p.m. we had the engineering tour. So in between, we walked around campus, we had lunch in their cafeteria, just checked out the bookstore, of course, and that evening we drove to Waterloo. Just the way the schedule worked out. We wanted to spend more time in Toronto, but we had to, you can see it was pretty busy. So we drove to Waterloo that day. So on day 7, Waterloo offers this thing called Shadow Day. And so what happens on Shadow Day, again, you have to contact them in advance. You have to contact their admission office, only if you're interested. It is free. And you say, I'm interested in University of Waterloo, can I have a Shadow Day? And on Shadow Day, they actually, if things line up, that's why you have to do it in advance. There is a student volunteer who's usually in year 2 or 3, who in the discipline that you're interested in, and that student takes you, your son follows that student for a day. So in the morning, my son got to go to a couple of lectures, and he'll speak about that a little bit with him. And because it was so hot, they were supposed to go to the labs, but the labs were canceled because they don't have AC at Waterloo. And but instead, they went to they did a bunch of other things that he really enjoyed, and he met a lot of students, and so that was super helpful. And then that evening, there is another VC grad who goes to U of T, but he was doing a co-op at Toyota at Waterloo. So I knew the mom, and I connected with her, and I said, hey, can we take him out for dinner that evening? And so it was great for this boy to connect with us and have nice dinner with us, but we also chatted about his experience and what it's like for him to live in Toronto. He finished his 2nd year of engineering by then, so he's been on his own for 2 years, and it was great for all of us to have a nice dinner together. And so then the next day we did the tour, the general tour, the engineering tour at University of Waterloo. They're all led by students, and there was a break, and then at 2:30 we did the general tour. The general tour was led by, I was very impressed actually, it was led by a student from Poli-Sci, and she said that she's really enjoying co-op program at Waterloo, and even though she studied Poli-Sci, she did co-op in marketing, and she quite liked it. So it was just neat to talk to her. She was like really open and very, very enthusiastic about it. And so after that, we drove at 2:30, we drove to London that evening, and then at 10:30 next day, are you guys following? Am I okay? Am I too fast? No, good. At 10:30 next day, we had the tour of Western University. It was pouring rain, and then right after that, we drove to Windsor. And you would think, why would you guys go to Windsor? I have a friend who finished who's in engineering, University of Windsor, and he ended up working. He actually works in Detroit, so he commutes from Windsor to Detroit every day. And I said, hey, we'll be there. Can we meet with you? And he was happy to meet with us. He works for one of the big automakers. And so we met with him. We did the tour of Windsor, and then he met us on campus, and he gave us a tour, and then we just went and had coffee with him. So we also planned, I put here McMaster, and we did not attend. They were toured out. They were done. So we just went to Niagara Falls instead. And then we flew home. So that was our itinerary, and you can see it was pretty busy, and we moved hotels pretty much, with the exception of Waterloo. It was typically one night that we stayed in. And I'm not promoting anything, and we wanted something that we could just be ready to go. So the hotel we stayed at, the chain we stayed at, they offered breakfast. So we just have breakfast and then it was like going to work kind of thing. So, yeah. So just a couple of pictures from what we saw. So as you know, the parliament is all in construction, and so we got to see that, and we actually went inside and did the tour. That you have to book too. It's free, but you have to book 6 weeks in advance because they get booked up. And we did a bicycle tour, which was really awesome too for the boys to see. This picture here is from Queens. So they took us around on their residency tour. And they showed us, there's different types of room. There's singles, there's like doubles. This is the double. And they give you a really good explanation. How do you apply, what you need to do, how the lottery system works, because a lot of them it's the lottery. The main thing that I remembered from there was that you cannot miss the deadline to apply to residencies. And the other thing is also most of universities, it's usually the first year that you get into the residence, and then the second year a lot of kids move off campus because there's just not enough space. So that's what often happens unless you end up working for the dorm or something like that. It's the first year where you live, and then the second year you need to think. And actually, a side note, so when we were in London, I have a friend who lives in Calgary, and her older son is in Western taking poli-sci. And so he said he wasn't there, it was the summer, so he was working at Stampede in the summer, but I connected with my friend, and she said, hey, I said, hey, can I connect with Ethan? Because I wasn't sure whether he'll be in town or not. Turned out he was working at Stampede, and he said, you guys are welcome to go into my house and just check it out. And we did go into the house to see what the house is like. So there was like 5 boys living in one house, and I had to take out the garbage because they forgot. I just couldn't help myself. But it was just interesting to see the student housing. And there was a code, you just go in. But basically what they do, they just rent the house for the whole year, and they pay for the summer because it's difficult to find spaces, and so they just choose to keep it, and they keep their stuff, and they're away for the summer, and then they come back. So that was an option that they've done, and it was an interesting experience to see what it's like, right, and how far. And it was about 7-minute drive from Western. So, and none of them have a car, so they all commute by bus into campus. I just thought I'd show you the picture because we were in the middle of the Ontario like really hot weather when we were there. So I actually took a picture. I was going through my pictures on my phone. It was 31, but it felt like 50. It was really hot. And so this picture here where the 2 boys are U of T, like you could not be outside. It was that hot at University of Toronto. But you just have to do what you have to do. And if you go in the winter, in some ways, then you experience the winter, right? Because we are spoiled here with our winters. The other interesting thing that I wanted to point out, what was neat, so when we did the University of Toronto tour, they also take you into the room and they walk you through all the requirements and what you need to do. And again, it's very useful. It makes you think, okay, what do I need to think about? Extracurricular activities, grades, what was the entrance grade last year? And they show you things that you may not necessarily see online on the campus on virtual tour. And that was useful. This picture here is a picture of just the brochure that they gave us. Again, you get more information and you just learn more about it. For the shadow day, just in terms of just entertainment, so when my older son did the Waterloo shadow day, so we dropped him off and we're like, okay, what are we gonna do in Waterloo? And so we just toured around. There's a lot of farms around there, so we went to a couple of shops and just drove around and just watched, just did the touristy things while we were waiting for the shadow day. These are pictures from Waterloo, so they have amazing facilities. I was quite impressed with their labs and all of the things that they do. And then that's a picture of their residence as well. So now I'd like to call my son up if he's here. Where did he go? Uh-oh. Okay, Nikolai. Thank you. So he will give you his perspective on what it's like if he's still here. We'll see. He is, okay. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Hello there. My name is Nikolai. I'm Michelle's son. I'm here to talk about why visiting universities was a positive experience for me and why you and your son should do the same. So just to tell you a bit about myself, I'm applying for business and engineering mostly. And outside of that, I'm passionate about technology and product distribution for startups. So there's two main reasons why I suggest you visit universities. Number one is that it sets your expectations. And for me, that meant I was much less stressed, which is pretty important when you're writing university applications, in my opinion. And number two is that it showed me aspects of universities that you can't really see on paper. So I'll elaborate what I mean by that. So when I went to a university, before going, I checked the top 10 lists in Canada. I'm like, okay, U of T's number one, McGill's number two, and everything else. I was like, okay, if I don't make those universities, my life is over. I'm never gonna get a job. But that's not really the case, I think, because after going to these universities, I found that a campus like U of T and McGill and Western, they're all actually pretty similar. Maybe McGill is a bit older and Western is a bit, like secluded, and U of T is bigger. But at the end of the day, they have very similar undergraduate programs. So I'm not as stressed about, getting into the number one program in Canada. To me, what really matters is when I get into a program, I will apply myself. I think that's the most important thing. And I'm not, much less stressed. Secondly, visiting these universities made me more confident in, it taught me details about universities you can't really read about. So university like Queen's, if you read about it, it's technically not the most competitive program for, say, computer science or engineering. But when you go there, you'll notice that that's not everything to the university life. You're not just studying all day. So Queens, what I really liked is that they're kind of a bit of an island. So when you're there, it's like a little town. Everyone knows everybody. There's basically a private beach. The view is great, and all the students are super energetic. So when I was writing my kind of preparing for applications, I crossed Queens off my list. I was like, okay, this school sucks or whatever. But that's not the case. I think going there showed me that I can meet a lot of great people there, and I can really enjoy my time at university. Another campus that I really benefited from visiting was Western. So Western is kind of a university town, and everybody really knows everybody there. I guess there's a culture of networking or whatever. People just party, but whatever. That was really fun because I toured one of my friend's dorm rooms, and that showed me what the university is about. And you can't really read about the people you meet or the energy that's in a university on a Wikipedia article. So that's what I learned from visiting universities. So I implore you to go visit campuses, during your application process or before your application process, because it'll help with your stress levels, and it'll show you give you clarity with your judgment. Yes. Thank you for listening.
Sorry, I'm 1,000 years old, so I don't do computers. I'm Loren. I have 4 children. 2 have graduated already, and they're in second year university. So I feel what you're feeling in terms of the grade 12 year. And I just want to say to the boys, my twins are different in terms of their personality. So the one didn't talk much. He sort of had his plan and went on and did the applications and thought of schools. But my other son, the one that I'm more worried about for grade 12s, was the one that from September would come home every day and say, I don't know what I'm going to do. Everybody else does. Where am I going? And I just felt that stress. And I want to say to the boys, it doesn't matter that if you don't know what you're doing. You're going to end up doing something. And you're going to enjoy it if you take the stress away from yourselves. Because you may start off with one program, like I did, and I went through 5 different programs before I finished, and every year my parents would say to me, what are you going to be? So they could tell their friends. Because But don't. The people I've met, the most interesting judges and lawyers and doctors and different professions started off not knowing. They rode the train back and forth from Canada and had different jobs. Not saying you need to do that, but what I'm saying is take some of the stress off of yourselves. You're going to find yourself. You're still young enough where you're not expected to know everything. And you're going to not know where you're going in September, in October, and don't let the noise get you, because applications aren't even due yet. So realize you're going to find where you need to be. So I just want to take some stress off of you. And I want to say, I know if you're applying to UBC and they have the early admission, one of the best pieces of advice that my kids got was, if you don't feel ready with December as your hard date to have your application ready because you've got midterms or you've got life, take the Christmas break and really do a good job on your application, because that portfolio is important. So don't rush it to hit a deadline. My son waited and didn't submit on the early deadline, took his time, and he found out when his application, his status, within a couple of weeks of the kids that actually applied early. So maybe take some stress off of yourself. Another piece that I'll give you now, if you're still considering this after hearing from me, is if you need help, we worked with an education planner to help my kids organize and think about what they might want to do. And if you're interested, I can give you her name or other people in this. But she was helpful in that she did some sort of aptitude testing with the kids to find out where their interests were and help them sort of isolate the different types of campuses they might be interested in, depending on what their personality was. If you're a person that needs interaction and socialization, you're not going to want to go to a campus where everybody's just looking down and focused on their program, because you may not be happy with that. So think about that as you're applying too. I think Nikolai really encapsulated that, of taking the stress off of himself and not thinking, okay, this is the place I have to go because everybody says this is the place I have to go. You need to think about what's right for you, because the most important person right now is you in making that choice. My one son went to engineering at UBC, and he planned my son, the second son that was more stressed, went through Corpus. And while I'm not plugging Corpus, it was a great experience for him because it's smaller classes, you get to know people, but he applied to UBC in the second year and was accepted, and he didn't have to go through that portfolio process. So if that portfolio process is daunting to you, that's another way to navigate through into UBC if that's a school that you want to attend. I don't know how to change that, sorry. Thank you. Okay, once you find out what school you're going to, or you get your applications and you have to decide, okay, what am I going to do? Where am I going? You really need to pay attention to those deadlines because they're hard and fast. The most important deadline, the acceptance, but it's the residence that's really the most important, as Michelle said. They have a hard deadline and they have a payment that's due, and if you miss it, you're out. At UBC, what I'd recommend if your child's going to UBC is that after you've accepted the residence, you put him on the wait list for the following year for accommodations, because the wait list is so long that it's even unlikely that if he's living in dorm that he'll get in second year. And you also want, as the student, to think about who you are as a person. So if you need quiet to study, you may want to select a room where you just have one roommate. You share a bathroom. So it's like a Jack and Jill bathroom. Do you know what I mean? The bedrooms are on the outsides and there's a bathroom. But if you're more the person that likes a lot of interaction, you can select dorms or put your preference in for dorms where you share a bathroom with a floor. So it's a bigger type bathroom, and you don't have to clean your own bathroom. If you choose to have one roommate, you will be cleaning your own bathroom. So that's the difference. And they'll also ask you some questions about your personality. So if you're a really outgoing guy, but you know that you're going to be caught into someone else's outgoingness, you might want to say that you're a morning person and you're super quiet because you're hoping they may align you with somebody like that. Because, well, the super outgoing guys will be fun to hang out with when you're not studying. If you've got the guy that loves to go to every frat party and is coming in and waking you up in the middle of the night, that might not be for you. So you need to think about that as well. You also have to think about dorm, or I think you have to think about with your parents, your budget. So is it your budget to live on dorm, or can you live off campus? Off campus is typically more expensive. My son, for example, the first year at UBC with residence and the meal plan and a computer and really no extras, it was about 25 grand. So with the meal plan, tuition, and computer sort of. Now he's in a basement suite with a roommate, and it's $1,400 a month each. And it's about a 20-minute bus ride, so it's around Arbutus and 19th area, and then cooking. The campus, though, is much more expensive if you're going to live on campus. The apartments are about $1,900-ish if for a bachelor, and then a 2-bedroom can be $4,200. So think about budget if that's a concern, because you're in it for a year at least, because most of the places require a rental agreement, and they will also typically require you to rent a place in May, because people's school term ends in April and accommodations come up in May. So with my son, we had to pay rent through the summer in order to secure a place for him, because it was so competitive to find accommodation that was a little less expensive but also close enough to campus. I do hear that rent is going down, but if you're living in Vancouver, it's not going down a lot, in my understanding. What I've heard about Queens from friends that have children going there is that's typically done in August, September. So the kids already know where they're living the next year, because they find it's just a different system, is how I understand it works if you're going to live, because it's more a university town. And know that there are no wrong decisions. So you can start in a program, not like the program, and change the program. It's really, you don't want to be wedded to something that you're not going to enjoy. However you go and however you choose to do it, you're going to be successful because you are who you are, and you're going to find your fit. Also, in terms of if you have the choice to decide if you're going someplace local, if you can live at dorm, if you can live outside of around the school or at home, look at your course schedule. If you're a morning person and it's going to take you 2 hours, we live out in White Rock, so it would take my son 2 hours to go to school if he was going to do a bus. His class schedule is at 8 a.m. That wasn't realistic for him. So look into your program, and a lot of the programs, if it's a specific program, will have a class schedule that you will learn to, that you're just sort of plug and play. You're in year 1, these are going to be your courses. If you're not going into a pre-designed program, then you may have some more flexibility, and your accommodation may be able to be worked around with that. And again, know yourself. Know if you want a roommate, know if you don't want a roommate. And like I said, the budget is really key, especially summer jobs are harder for students to find. So if a student is thinking, well, that's okay, I'm going to make the money the following year, maybe you want to consider your budget stretching a little bit longer, just in case you don't get that summer job that you thought you were going to get, or some summer courses that you want to take. Now, in terms of if you're going to live in a dorm, and I've got a handout if anybody wants of sort of the basic essentials for a dorm, but I'll give you the UBC example. If you're going to live in a dorm at UBC, you get a bed, and it's got storage underneath, like drawers, and a desk, and a closet that you can hang things in. So there are things, and I've got a handout, that you'll want to buy for your dorm room. Extra long sheets. So the bed is a twin extra long So in case you don't know that, you can find them on Amazon. But if you don't read, because all of the information is going to come to your son, and as a parent, you're not going to be getting it. At least in my house, my kids were sort of the day before, oh yeah, I need this. And I'm like, ah. So if you're a control freak, you got to learn to roll with it and try to look things up online. But I made like a cheat sheet for you as to things to consider for the dorm room, because when you move into the dorm room, you want it to be ready to go, because you get, it's a time allotment you get a like a roll cart, you put your stuff in and you're up to the room and you want to get them organized. So the more you have ahead of time, the better it is for you and for your student, because your student, at least in my case, were like, they could hardly wait for us to leave. Like I was like in tears and they wanted to go and meet people. And so they were like this. And I'm like, do you want to go for dinner? And I'm like trying to make the room and make it all cozy. And they're just like, let's go, let's go. So I've one thing you're going to need. If your son's living in the dorm, he may want a fridge. I would recommend if you get like a little mini fridge, there are like, you know what I mean by a toilet rack, like those racks that go over toilets that you can, like shelves. It's like a shelving unit, like metal. It's like $40 on Amazon, but you put it over the fridge and then you've got more stacking for their items. It just, some space saving. Little containers you can get at IKEA, like for socks and underwear, because they're just these big, deep drawers, and you want them to be organized so set up for success. I've got a list for medical kit, sort of ID, sort of all their meals will be included. But what I did for mine is, because I was a little bit, I made like a little book with hidden gift cards in there. I went around the campus and found different places. So if they wanted to go out, they had like a gift card, or if they were feeling a little bit sad, whatever. Like I just, because they were my first to go, so I was probably far more emotional than they. But just little things like that from home. Mixed tiles. Do you know what I mean by those mixed tiles? If you want to do pictures, go to Mixed Tiles and they'll print out your picture, and it's like lightweight and they just hang on the dorm walls with a magnet. So you can decorate the room and you don't have to, you can't put holes, most of the walls are concrete. But again, it's in the blackout blinds. You can hang them up with shower curtains. If you, back when we could go to the States, or when I was, Target has those shower curtain rods that push in on the sides, and you can use those to hang blackout blinds, but you can get them on Amazon. And sorry, if they're living off campus, well, I've talked about the price, but one thing I would recommend is when they're going to apply, I did this when I was looking and it worked, is you bring kind of a little resume of yourself, little details, what program you're in, all your contact information, maybe some references, and it's all typed out on a sheet like a resume, and you hand that if you're taking applications, and it kind of sets you apart to show that you actually probably are responsible if you thought of something like this, because you're competing with other people and you're also young. So the landlords are worried about people, unfortunately, that are young coming in and having parties and messing things up. So the more you can do to set yourself apart and look like a good candidate, I think you're more likely to get a better place to live. If you're living at home, that's where it gets a little bit tricky. So one of my sons lives at home. So he's technically an adult, but just managing that, like, because we kind of don't have as much control. We don't see their marks anymore unless they show us. And just managing them as, or your own expectations or yourself, because you kind of, what I'll say to the boys is, remember that for some of you, you're the first to leave. So it's hard for us as parents to let you go. But if you can keep the communication with us so that we know you're okay, it's going to give you more room to grow. In terms of your parents not nagging you, because When we left my son's school, I was in tears, and I expected a call, like immediately. He kind of called me later, but some days my texts are like all my side, the blue, right? Do, 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 and then I'll get kick, and I don't hear from him other than I get a snap. So get a snap account if you don't have one, and your son can snap you once a day so you know they're still alive, because you might not hear from them, and that's okay. It's hard. Oh, Snapchat. Sorry. That's okay that you don't hear from them, because that means they're doing what they should be doing. Also, when you register for the residence, if you're going to UBC, and I know most of the universities do this, they have a jump start. You know what I mean by jump start? So you apply to jump start, and your son gets to start living in dorm about a week early. So can get set up in dorm, but also gets partnered up in these different classes for campus tours to meet people in his program, and just live like a university student before the classes start and they actually have to focus. So they learn, this is where the library is, or the other libraries, and where their classes are. So that's and UBC, it's not very expensive. I think it's $200. I think maybe a little bit less, but they cap out. And that includes your rent and their meals while they're there. So it's not bad for an extra 4 or 5 days. And I know other universities do this, and Corpus does something like this as well. But just make sure you pay attention to those dates. So go on the website, because they may tell your student, but if your student's not telling you to the day before the cutoff is, it might already be full. And it's a really, I think, helpful resource for the kids. I will tell students that what we noticed is that the kids are encouraged to get involved. So they say, don't study all the time in your room, because you want to be getting out and meeting people. UBC, for example, has a fantastic gym. Set up a routine for yourself with the gym. Just learning about yourself. Now, kids are going to get homesick, or you might get homesick for them. Like I said, the little gift cards, checking around the campus, setting up little things for them, just so that they know you're still there, but a bit more remote, because they're really, with their independence, they want to be independent. In terms of medical, like they should have their driver's license with them. If they don't already have a credit card, we just put our kids on our credit card, and I monitor it, and I limited how much they could charge it, once before I get the red flag. Because, Cactus Club could be an emergency for some people. So, but my list that I have for you will include all of those little things. I don't think I need to tell you every little detail. UBC and all the campuses will have medical care for students. What you should know at UBC, though, that you might not know, is if your child needs medical care that's not an emergency, it's really hard to get into a doctor there. Like, you have to fill it out, like everywhere probably, but when I went to UBC, it was a lot easier. You just showed up. Now they have to make these sort of get to sort of known. So I would have your son register himself, just so if there was a situation where he was sick, he could get in quicker. They will have great care for them, but it just takes a while to get that hooked into. If your child is going to live there, part of the residence fees or part of your fees include a health care program. But if you have health care through your employment, just remember to let them know. So your son has to submit proof that he has health care through like his parents, or they'll charge you, I think, $300 or $400. So if you want to have that removed, do that. What I did on the way home is after we dropped him off, I was so stressed that I'd never see him again that I booked a Christmas vacation without checking a thing called an exam schedule. And so we had to change his plane. He came the day after. So maybe if you're going to be feeling like, oh my God, you're never going to see your child again, and you're going to never have spring break again, and book a crazy trip, maybe check the exam schedule, which comes out mid-October. It's about mid-October. And you can check it online, because if you wait for your son, you might not find out till December. Just not saying from any past experience on my part. The documents, I've got that listed for you. Balance for your self, and reality versus expectation. So if you're a person that really checks in with your son and you're not hearing from him, maybe just like I said, have some sort of routine. And there's going to be periods where they're going to be so busy and stressed that if we're constantly like, why aren't you responding? Why aren't you responding? They're getting a lot of pressure. This is new for them. It's really hard, or at least for me, because I'm a control freak, to back off. But seeing that they really, when you see them flourishing and getting through a semester and just feeling that sense of accomplishment, and the first semester, the growth that you see in them is just remarkable. So what one of the moms in my year did, she had a bunch of us moms and dads submit recipes, because her idea was man can't live on ramen noodles alone. But then she turned it into, and you can see the book, tips and tricks for setting up. So if anybody wants it, I'll have a sheet that you can sign up for, and I can send it to you, but it's fantastic. So there's recipes, easy recipes for boys to make, but also things like the tools you might need and quick fixes for things that may go wrong in your, oh, like, sorry, my kids think I'm loud. So just lots of tips and tricks, and setting up a house, and what kind of ID do you need, and quick little, you know, it's honestly a great Bible for anybody starting off on their own. So if anybody wants it, I'll have a sheet out as well for people that want that. And then I have a handout as well that I brought. That is your dorm shopping list. If your child's going to live in a dorm, which you can modify if your child's going to live in an apartment. I think that's pretty much covers. Any questions? Thank you.
Well, thank you. We're happy to answer questions. I hope that covered a few things for you guys. Yeah. Yes. Oh, where did he go? I don't know. He's Oh, we're still applying right now. We're going through yeah, because he's in grade 12 right now. I should have clarified. Yes, yeah. So, yeah, he's he's definitely more chill than I am, for sure. Yeah, in some ways it did. You know, I think it did. It helped us to just, the big thing for us was just to be on campuses and like get that feel. And as Lauren said, you need to match the campus to the personality of your child. You know, you may think that that's what it is, but it may not be. And just seeing what it's like, really, I think it helps him make a decision and helps us. I mean, it's his decision. So right now we're in the process of applying. Like we've applied to all the schools that we've visited. He's going to apply to UFC as well, UBC. And we've heard back from one school, and because he did the early admission. But again, as Lauren said, you don't have to do it early. You got to do it what's right for you. I have a friend, their son is a year older. He knew what he wanted to do. Like, he was very specific. He's very outdoorsy, and he likes to hunt with his dad. And he's like, I want to be a mining engineer. So he applied to U of A last year into early admission, and by Thanksgiving, he knew he was in, as long as he maintains his grades. So, but, you know, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, that's a good point, the grades. So when you get an acceptance, some schools will say your acceptance is conditional. Like one school was like 20% your grade could change, and then some schools were like 2 to 3%. So make sure you pay attention to that, because then you can stock Power School.
Yeah, you can, and so his admission is conditional on the grades. And you do have insight into it. I found grade 11 was more stressful. Like grade 12 is not as difficult, you know, but it is stressful in a way that we're applying through all the universities right now. So that's a lot of work to go through that process. So, yeah.
They said in law school, I think I equate this to senior school. In first year, they scare you. In second year, they overwhelm you. And in third year, they bore you. So that might apply.
Yeah, to some. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, Gary. You know, I think so. I don't think other campuses have like a formal process like this. Waterloo, in my opinion, I was quite impressed by their co-op program. And again, I'm like, I have to be careful. I don't want to. You guys have to make your own decision. But what I liked about Waterloo is their Waterloo started co-op program. I don't know if you guys know this, right? Like they came up with the co-op program, and you went to Waterloo, you know, right? But sorry. You did co-op, right? And yeah, so they invented it, and which I found out when I went there. I did co-op when I did my undergrad, but yeah, it's very, very well organized compared to other schools. You know, in some schools you're on your own, you have to find it, but Waterloo is really like you do a term and then you do a co-op term. Like Gary, you can attest to it. You do a term, which is pretty. If that's what you want to do, you know, and if you're more theoretical and, you know, as I said, the girl who did our tour, general tour, and she was a poli-sci student, and she said she did a marketing, and she really enjoyed it. So that's great, you know. I did co-op myself, and I thought it was very useful. So yeah. So he started with engineering, but he changed his mind. It's now comp sci and business, and it's different schools. So for Queens, it's comp sci and business. He hasn't applied to business yet. For UBC, it's comp sci and just comp sci. And UVic, it's engineering. So he's a bit all over the place, to be honest. Yeah. Right. Okay. So so for solder, and don't quote me. So for solder, it's a separate application process, and they have a ranking system. So I can't speak to solder because we're not applying. But and there is a if you they do a whole presentation. Mr. Taggart and Mr. Chili, they do a really good presentation on the process and how you do it. Sorry, can you ask me again the question? Because so for UBC, there is an online portal that you apply to. For Ontario schools, you apply through online. You look. You know more about that? Yes. Sorry.
I know with UBC, if it's for a specific faculty like engineering or Souter, you have to say what your first choice is and then your second choice.
Yes.
And if you make your first choice, they don't tell you about the second choice. And so you have to be sort of strategic about how you're planning that. My son wanted to do engineering, so he's first choice was Vancouver, and then he said engineering Okanagan. But you only can put two. History, I think, would be in the arts faculty of arts, I think, don't quote me. So you could, if that was what you wanted to go into and you wanted it to be in UBC, you could say if Vancouver was your first choice, first, and then second if you wanted Okanagan, or you could say second choice is solder, or engineering. But if you make your first choice, apparently you don't get a choice. Like you don't get, oh, you got pick, you committed. If first is first and you get it, that's what you get. Is that what you wanted to know?
Yeah, different schools have different rules. Yeah, but for Ontario, what I was going to do is you do it through that online portal, right? Like there's that Ontario portal. Yes, you do. Yes. Yeah. My husband is an engineer, and he has a giant spreadsheet with all the schools, and it's very organized. And so, yeah, we divide and conquer. I see that, Laria, you're also nodding. So you help them in ways where you can. So we've got the spreadsheet, and we help him with keeping him organized that way.
There's one program if your son is interested in business and engineering and you want to be able to have sort of more strategic, U of C has a double program, like a engineering
University
business.
of Calgary, yes.
Yeah,
And
program.
so is Western. You
Okay.
could apply to engineering and business as well. So that's what Nikolai is applying to. And you have to do a Casper test. You know about the Casper test. So for engineering at Western, you need to register for the Casper test. Yeah. So I guess takeaway is I hope you guys found it useful. Take a breath. We're all in it together. The idea, again, we wanted to do it in person because we wanted people to interact and share ideas. And and just it's not, but
And
you can see
enjoy
there's
grade 12.
yes, yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
old, so when I was in grade 12, we just went to school and we wanted to go to school. We wanted to go to university. There'd be a university for us. I'm 1,000, right? So I just want you guys to just really just be young still and enjoy university. Don't you got lots of time to worry.
Okay, well, it's 8:00, so thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll stick around for a few minutes. Oh, and there's also the handouts. Yes, so Loren has the handouts if you want to grab those on your way out.